Okay.
Yeah,
right.
ready to go.
Thank you. Well, my name's Chris Collison, and I am chair of the Conservation Area Advisory Committee, and I would like to welcome all members and any other people who are viewing this either live or at a later date. First of all, could I ask if there are any apologies?
Yes, there are. There are apologies from Chris Toomey, who's the vice chair, John Sharp, Carol Craven, Maxwell Craven, and Councillor Wood.
Right, thank you very much. So that means that possibly one or two other people may be just late joining us, in which case that will be fine.
Okay.
I think anyone viewing this will be able to see the names of the people who are present.
Do you want me to go through them, Chris?
Well, we could just perhaps mention that now, if you don't mind, Lynn.
No problem. With Chris Collison, who's the chair, Chris Wardle, Councillor Dinsder, Councillor Carr, and Paul McLaughlin are all present at this meeting.
Lovely, thank you. I'd like to just make a particular special welcome to Councillor Dinsder and Chris Wardle, who I think are attending for the first time, whilst we're actually no longer operating on a purely written basis. So welcome, and hope you'll be able to contribute over a long period to this important committee.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so in terms of late items to be introduced, I don't have any, but I just would mention that the start time of this meeting was adjusted from that previously advertised, but it was a sort of a halfway house, in that future meetings are intended to start at 4 o'clock. And that was felt to be more appropriate in terms of officer support and so on. So perhaps if you could just note that the future meetings, the next one of which will be on the 3rd of December, will start at 4 o'clock on the hour. Okay, thank you. So are there any declarations of interest? No. No.
No.
No, it seems not. Thank you. Okay, I was just delaying slightly to make sure there were none. So we're on to item 4 then, which is the notes of the informal non-convened meeting on the 3rd of September 2020. And has everyone seen that? And if so, are you happy that they are a true record of the meeting?
Happy, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. So if Paul, you're perhaps moving that they've accepted as a true record, is there someone happy to?
Yeah, I'm happy to move that, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, just one little minor point. My name, I'm just looking at the members and at the first page of the, it says Hardy Dinsder. I think there's a typing error.
Oh, right.
But I think I'm sure Lindsay can sort that. Thank you.
Yeah, apologies, Councillor Dinsder. I'll amend it for you.
Thank you. Yeah, as someone whose surname is always spelt wrong, I have a lot of sympathy with that. Yeah. Right. Okay. We can move on then to if we've accepted those minutes, the items determined since the last meeting, and I think Chloe, you might be able to perhaps just display those. But if not, we won't need to worry about that, because people will have received a email copy of that list. Chloe, are you there? I think we've lost Chloe at the moment.
She's still there.
Hello, I'm here. I'm just trying. It just takes a few moments to share my screen. So, are you able to see what
Yes,
I'm
we
showing
can.
you?
Yes, we can see that. We can certainly see the page 1. Yep.
Yeah.
There's page 2. Page 3. And that's it.
Lovely. Okay, so are we happy to note those decisions?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. And then we move on to item 6, which is applications not being considered, and just to remind members that there is a procedure that the chair and vice chair are consulted by officers on applications that should be considered at the CAC meetings, and obviously that leaves the residue of applications that will not be considered. Generally, they tend to be regarded as items that officers can satisfactorily deal with in terms of established policy and so on. And that list is now displayed in front of you. I just ask. I think it extends a little bit, but that's it, Chloe. It's moving up in front of our very eyes, isn't it? But,
Yep.
And yep. So I just ask that everyone is happy to note those. Yep.
Yes, Chair. That's
Noted, Chair.
as we said.
Thank you, Paul and Chris. And so we move on then to the meat of the main item of the meeting, which is the applications to be considered, which is item 7. And there are 4 different sites that are being considered this afternoon, and Chloe's going to give an introduction in respect of each of those, and then I'll invite any comment from members of the committee, and we will try and formulate a view so that we can make a recommendation on those. I believe, taking them in the order that they were printed on the agenda sheet, Chloe, that the first item would be land adjacent to 73 Friargate, which is the demolition of a social club outbuilding and erection of 6 apartments. Thank you.
That is correct. So this area is, as you say, adjacent to 73 Friargate in Derby, obviously within the Friargate conservation area and near to a number of listed buildings. The proposal is for the demolition of the social club outbuilding, and there was the previous proposal was for the erection of 6 apartments, and I'm sure you remember that proposal. 4 apartments is now proposed. So here's the site just as a reminder, and there's the social club building which is proposed to be demolished. Here's the previously proposed building set well back into the site. Then there was an amendment, and if you remember, this one came before you. Just to give a bit of a reminder, it was December last year, and the previous comments were that members considered the proposal to be inappropriate, failing to enhance the existing conservation area, without merit, and wasn't sympathetic and would be detrimental to listed buildings near to the site. And it was suggested that the building could be relocated further forward on the site. So the applicant has put forward another suggestion. As you can see in the plan or the layout on the left-hand side, they've pushed the building almost level with the adjacent building. And on the right-hand side, the elevation fronting Friargate itself. To the rear, and the side elevation. And there's a sort of rendered visualization of the proposal. And that's it.
Okay, well, the applicants have obviously responded positively to some of the comments that we had previously made, in that they've brought the building forward so that it's now in line with, or nearly in line with, the street frontage, and the mass of the building and design are more in keeping with the surroundings. So, does anyone have any thoughts about the revised proposal?
Chair, it's Paul. I think the proportion. Can you hear me? Okay, by the way. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the size and the proportion, the massing are now quite acceptable, and the fact that it's been pulled forward in the site is a great benefit. I do, however, have some reservations about the fenestration. The proportion of the fenestration compared to the elegant vertical emphasis of the sash windows on the adjacent building, and indeed the proportion of the windows on the 102 social. I feel that it's rather at odds with that, and I think a more delicate fenestration rather than the big glazed panel would be appropriate in that situation.
Okay, and any other comments?
Yeah, yes, Chair. It's Councillor Carr here. I echo Mr. McLaughlin's comments. I think the fact that they've brought the building forward to line up with the others is certainly a vast improvement. I'm not particularly keen on the rendering myself, but I suspect that's just me. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, anyone else got a comment on the introduction of so much render?
Chair, it's Paul McLaughlin. I have no great objection to the render because it sets the building apart from the more modern context to the adjacent building. So I have no great problem with that. And of course, you've got the Greyhound slightly further down, which has render on it as well, or white painted. So it doesn't particularly cause me concern. I say it's the proportions of the fenestration that cause me more concern.
Okay, Mike, how do you feel about that then?
Well, yeah, I stand corrected. I'd forgotten about the Greyhound. I think Paul's probably correct. I just have in a red brick area. I'm not that keen on rendering, but I see where he's coming from, and I think he's. I suspect, Chair, that we'd have great difficulty, having been through this twice and seen a big improvement in rejecting it again.
Yes. I mean, certainly now the actual sighting on the frontage and the scale of the building are much more appropriate than previously. As far as the render is concerned, I mean, it's possible that you could have less render, but I'm not sure, like you, Mike, that would be a major factor. So I think in conclusion then, it seems that we feel that this is a significantly improved version of the scheme for the site, and that it is now almost appropriate, but with the exception that we feel the fenestration should be re-looked at, so that the proportions are more in keeping with the adjoining buildings.
Yeah, I would suggest, Chair, that we could recommend approval and leave that issue to be discussed by the officers with the applicant.
Okay, are we all happy with that then as an approach? And have you got a clear note, Lindsay? Yep.
Yeah, I'm happy with that
So have,
approach.
yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'll take all that as affirmative then, and thank you very much for that. So we move on then to St Helen's House. It's listed twice because there are the planning application and the listed building consent, and this is an application that has been considered by CAC before, but not in one of these meetings. It was in one of the non-convened meetings not too long ago. It might have even been the last meeting. And so I now invite Chloe just to introduce the latest position regarding the proposals at St Helen's House.
Hello there. I hope you can see on the screen a photograph of St Helen's House, the Pearson building and the Headmaster's house.
Yes.
Yes.
That's good. So these applications are to do with the change of use and alterations in association with the Pearson building, Headmaster's cottage, to form 5 commercial units, 1 office and 4 apartments, with associated landscaping and boundary treatments. And it includes demolition of part of the boundary wall and lean-to and associated works. Now, it did come before committee at a previous meeting, 3rd of September 2020. Now, at that point, the main concern that was voiced was regarding the works to the Headmaster's house. So this is a photograph of the Headmaster's house, and the previous comments made was you were resolved to have a holding objection because there wasn't sufficient justification for the extent of internal alterations to the Headmaster's house, and thought that should be explored further. So in terms of that, you can see the wording of your comments there, and it was in particular to the removal of some internal walls and replacement and repositioning of the staircase that was of a concern, and the formation of new doorway openings, window openings that hadn't been adequately justified. And there were some additional comments by advisory committee members, just to remind you of the existing and proposed layout and the extent of change. So that's the ground floor. The red dotted lines show the elements being altered, and you can clearly see the proposal for the removal of the stairs from this area to the area adjacent to further forward within the building and towards the main street. And this is the first floor, existing and proposed. The existing is top left, the proposed is bottom right, also showing the removal of walls. So the only information that we've had submitted, specifically talking about the Headmaster's house and in response to comments made, is that they are justifying it in that they said that the original application was for 3 residential units, 1 to the ground floor, 1 to the first one, 1 spanning both of them, whereas now they're proposing to do less units within the building, so there's now 2 apartments. They are arguing, obviously putting forward their case, that all schemes, both schemes, would have required an extensive change, and they think that there may be some possibility of retaining some existing walls to offset the loss of the existing staircase. In terms of the ground floor, I think that's the reasoning behind that, as I said, was because of the entrance off Arthur Street, and the walls at the moment create very small lobbies which are very difficult to convert, they say. They also state that the existing staircase is quite institutional and modern by construction, and They think that in terms of relocating the stair, it will enable the use of this building. And they highlight the reasons for this. So that's all we've had in response in terms of that.
Is that it?
Yes, that is it.
Okay, right. Well, I think perhaps it would be helpful to sort of break this down into the component parts. It seems that the Pearson building itself has proposals that are well considered and sensitive, subject to some detailed matters that we've raised previously, vents, drainage, fire prevention and so on, and recording. And so I suppose the Pearson building seems to be okay. We've previously discussed the walkway that linked the two buildings, and came to the view that its loss was acceptable. I think that was a difficult decision, but the condition came into it, and the fact that it would, in some respects, better reveal the two separate buildings. But it may be that the walkway could be, in some way, marked, even though it's to be lost. Its presence could be marked in some way, perhaps with indications on the ground or whatever, so that there's a historical connection with that particular feature that is no longer there. But I think it was generally accepted that could be lost. So that leaves really then the headmaster's house to be discussed, and there was concern previously about the removal of the staircase, or moving of the staircase, and also concern about loss of fabric. And we've just heard the latest explanation of those. So perhaps, unless anyone wants to comment on either the Pearson building or the lean-to walkway that's beyond repair, then I'd invite comment on the headmaster's house, and in particular, the issues that we've previously identified, which were the moving of the stair, and the other issue, which was sort of loss of fabric, potentially unnecessarily. So, can I invite any comment on the proposals?
Can I just make a point about both applications, but particularly the Pearson building, is that some historic fabric, some of the significance of the building would be lost, and both buildings would be lost. So I think it's appropriate to attach a condition for recording of the fabric to be damaged or destroyed.
Yes. I'm sure we could all agree with that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see nods and indications of agreement there. Yeah. And then, are there any other comments about these other aspects of the proposals for the headmaster's house, in particular the moving of the staircase, which was questionable why that had to happen, and loss of fabric, really?
Chair, it's Paul McLaughlin. I do feel that the new justifications that they've put in don't go quite far enough in that sense. It is still regrettable that stairway has got to be removed, although yes, it is of a very modest and not terribly striking feature. But I do feel that there ought to be a slightly more justification in their report on that.
Okay. And then any comment on the loss of fabric? There seem to be parts of the detail on it being removed without full justification.
Again, there doesn't seem to be enough justification there as to why this has to happen. I can appreciate and particularly value the fact that this building is getting a new lease of life. But I do feel there's perhaps a better way of dealing with it, with its internal rearrangement. So that's my comment, Chair.
Thank you. So are there any other comments on these proposals for St Helens House?
I've got no further comments, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, well, right. Well, it seems then that we support the proposals in principle, and welcome the reuse of the buildings, and would like to just put on record then concerns in two respects. One, that it's important that there is proper recording of any of the fabric that is to be lost, and secondly, that we feel there is at present insufficient justification regarding the moving of the stair and loss of fabric in the headmaster's house. So,
agreed, Chair.
All agreed that those comments are our.
Agreed, Chair.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much.
No,
So we can move. Thank you, Chris. So we can move on then to. I think, Chloe, you've got the old hall coming up next. Is that right?
Hello, yes, that's right.
Perhaps we could move on to that. There are two aspects to the proposal. There's the re-roofing of the main building, and then there's a proposal which is a variation of a previous scheme, now putting forward a garage, a separate garage on the site. So perhaps you could just lead us through the proposal, please, Chloe. Thank you.
Yes, certainly. As you all know, this is the old hall is listed Grade 2 star and located within Nicolova Conservation Area. It's a very early building and dates from 1649. And as you can see from the photograph, it's square panelled timber framed with a red brick noggin and a tiled roof. So as the Chair's pointed out, there has been a previous application for a two-storey garage that came before you in April of this year, which you objected to as it had an adverse impact on the setting of the building, and it was refused. Now the applicant has come forward with the proposals for a single garage, but once again in the same location as previously proposed. So the structure is a timber construction with weatherboarded to sides, brick gable end and a plain tile roof. So once again, the proposal is proposed in this location here. So this is just a quick recap on the location of the previous application. As you can see, here's the front of the building. So it's not just the old hall, which is Grade 2 star listed, but also the gate piers, which you would have noticed on the previous photograph. They're listed in their own right, Grade 2. Now, so this is where one looks at the main front entrance. So this was where the previously proposed garage was located, and here's the visuals showing you the two-storey building which was refused. I've got the comments that you made during the last meeting when this was considered in April 2020. We can come back to those if you wish shortly. So, as I said, the application is for a single-storey garage, albeit in the same location. So here's some visuals showing the proposed garage. Here's some photographs of the building and its proposed location. these are found within the Heritage Impact Assessment, and so the blue arrow marks the location of the proposed garage. There's also the north elevation, which is top right, and the west elevation, which is bottom right. So that's in terms of the garage proposal. I should just say that you've seen online Historic England have voiced their concerns in terms of lack of justification and assessment of other locations to see if they're less harmful for a garage. Moving on to the proposed re-roofing of the building. There's a little bit more detail in terms of the Heritage Statement and Heritage Impact Assessment talks about the renewal of the roof covering, that it's for maintenance work, that includes the removal of the existing tiles, application of a breathable insulation, replacement of softwood battens and breathable membrane, and original tiles being put back or replaced as necessary, new lead work, etc. However, there's no condition survey to justify the need for undertaking this work. There aren't any photographs of water ingress or internal timbers in disrepair, nor any close-up photographs of the exterior of the roof. It does say within the information that a detailed method statement prepared by an appointed roofing contractor will be submitted and subject to any approval of the application. In terms of, so just to finish off, they do propose to strip the whole roof. It's not just partial areas of the roof, but there doesn't seem to be a plan showing the different parts of the roof. The only analysis of the roof structure and phasing is within the Heritage Statement of Significance. It does point out that there is a lot of the original timber work, but at some point in the 20th century, early 20th century, a lot of it has been strengthened with additional timbers. And I'm just going to show you some photographs. So obviously within the photographs I'm showing you at the moment, show some of the building which is right, and some of the rooms are right up into the underside of the ridge and within the roof structure itself, where the other parts are there is a loft, and you can see there's quite a lot of both historic timbers but a lot of new timbers as well. So it was just to highlight and show you that. And then there's some more photographs in terms of the underside, showing that there's no membrane in some of the in some of the parts of the roof. Okay.
Thank you, Chloe. So perhaps we could discuss the two parts of the proposals separately. The first part, as we've just heard, is a revision to the scheme that we objected to previously, which was for a large garage structure with a room above and external staircase. We felt that was inappropriately located and would have an adverse impact on the character of the important listed building. The revised proposal, although smaller in scale, it's now a single garage and a single story, is still in the inappropriate location, and it's a shame that we had previously found that the historical there is historical, well, through photographs, historical justification for there used to be cart stores and later garaging to the north of the house. There's an area to the north of the house where a garage could be set back from the main building frontage, and which would then be far less imposing than the location that's being put forward. So we said all that, and whilst they've reduced the scale of the building, they've left it in what would be an inappropriate location, really. And we've just heard from Chloe that Historic England are concerned, and clearly that is a major factor that we must consider as well. So I don't know whether anyone's got any further comment on the garage proposal, which is sort of positioned out front of the main elevation of the building.
Chair Paul McLaughlin. Yes, I have great concerns about the impact of that garage location on the setting of the listed building, which is arguably one of the most important buildings in that vicinity. So yeah, I really feel very uncomfortable with that building. I also feel rather uncomfortable with the materials of that building as well. Being that it's timber in essence, I think they're probably trying to justify that it's demountable at some point if the context needs to be changed, but I don't think it's appropriate. I think the applicant ought to look very closely at another location, and as you suggest, or we suggested previously, where the former buildings were located.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's somewhere in there. Chloe says that there doesn't seem to be any effort to have looked at the other locations, and I hadn't realised, because I think I must not have been at the meeting where we discussed this before, that there was actually a place where there'd also been some storage buildings. So I completely support rejection of this garage in that location. I think it's a lovely building. I used to live near there, and to be honest, I'm slightly surprised that it's not grade 1. It's a fabulous building, and we shouldn't be sticking this perishing wooden shed in front of it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So does anyone wish to vary from those comments, really, or shall we take them as being indicative of everything?
There's a comment I'd like to make, and it's a very similar one to the school building, that assuming that a suitable location can be found for this garage, and I certainly would agree with you that what they're currently proposing isn't suitable, but assuming that they can at some future date, then there needs to be a watching brief carried out when the foundations of this structure are built, and secondly, when they're carrying out repairs to the roof or replacing the roof, then builder recording needs to be carried out in the roof so that a full understanding of the significance of the roof can be obtained.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Chris. I was going to move on to the roof in a moment.
All right, okay, but I was sort of rather going ahead of sorry about that.
No, but you've got your comment in, and that's fine. So as far as the garage proposal is concerned, then it's clear that we wish to object to the proposal on the grounds that the location selected is inappropriate and will have a adverse impact on the character of the Old Hall building, and secondly, the materials are inappropriate for the location, and thirdly, that if at a future date a permission is granted, that should include a requirement for archaeological recording and so on. So at the moment it's an objection to the proposal in terms of location and materials. So are we all agreed with that?
Agreed, Chair.
Yes, agreed, Chair.
So moving on then, thank you to the roof. It sounded from Chloe's description as though there is very little justification put forward at the moment, and it's not clear why such a comprehensive re-roofing is necessary. So it sounded as though we ought to be objecting to the proposal until full information, convincing information is made available, and that we've got assurances that as much of the existing fabric will be retained. There seems very little detail, on both those grounds. The justification itself and the retention of material are not sufficient at the moment. So does anyone wish to comment on that?
Yes.
No.
Yes. Oh, sorry, Paul.
No, sorry, no, after you.
Yeah, Paul, and then Mike, please.
Yes, Chair, I agree with your sentiments entirely. I think there needs to be a fully comprehensive report prepared by a specialist, not just a roofing contractor, but a roofing contractor if it's going to be somebody who's got significant knowledge, but also all the associated details that would go with that roof, such as the valleys, etc., all need carefully looking at and making sure that they're recorded and the tiles put back in exactly the same way. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
I would
Mike?
suggest that we are.
Yeah.
The
Agree with all of that, Chair. Just add that I'm actually slightly puzzled because this is not a cheap exercise. The roof doesn't seem to be giving any problems. Why are you going to spend £20,000 on changing the roof? You're going to put the same tiles back. So why are they doing it? I don't understand that, Chair. So we need further justification why they want to do it. I mean, I don't object to them spending the money and so on, but it seems a bit odd to me. Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
Absolutely. My
Chris?
point is that I think that we should require the owners to produce a statement of significance of the roof.
Yep. Okay. So it sounds like everyone's in one mind as to the fact that we're unhappy with the proposal at the moment and should object on the basis that full a comprehensive specialist report has not been produced to justify such a drastic measure, and also that report should include information about the retention of as much as possible of
Absolutely.
And so on. So I'm sure in putting that report together, we would want them to, as you've said, Chris, include information that could be regarded as a statement of the significance of the roof itself. So are we all agreed then?
Chair.
Is the comment? Yep.
Chair, one more comment. I'm concerned that it ought to include a method statement as well, because if they start to strip that roof, and given the delicate nature of the timber framing, we need to know that it's going to be properly protected during that process.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're all agreed that we can add that to the requirement of the detail that we would like to see. Thank you. Okay, all happy with that then?
Yes, Chair.
So that's concluded the consideration of the old hall, and we move then to the final proposal on the agenda, which is the known as the Becketwell site, which we have previously given consideration to, but the scheme has now moved to become a detail scheme for part of the site, and Chloe's going to just remind us of the details of the proposal that is before us today. Thank you, Chloe.
Okay, I hope you can see the plan, the map showing the Becketwell site.
Yes.
Obviously, this is, as you say, a reserve matters application, so a detailed application for phase 1. So this is for the erection of a building to provide 259 residential units with internal and external resident amenities, car parking, servicing, 2 commercial units at ground floor level. And what they're looking at in terms of this application, whereas the outline agreed access, this application is looking at appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. So the hatched area on the map shows the phase 1 area which this application relates to. Just a reminder of the different phases that was obviously part of the outline application. So here are some sort of elevations showing the proposed building in its context. So as you can see, it's an 11-storey building, and that's the side elevation that fronts the square. There you go, there's the elevation that's proposed to front Victoria Street. So here are sections through, and there's a rendered version at the bottom. Here's the elevation that fronts Green Lane. So as you can see, the Green Lane runs down here and Victoria Street is in this location. So that shows you the side elevation. And lastly, here's a section through the site looking at the rear of the building that then fronts Victoria Street. So you can see that the building is a brick-built building, a mixture of brick and brick cladding of red-orange brick as well as blue brick. There's also grey powder-coated aluminium windows. Okay, so there's the visual showing the view, obviously down the Strand, looking at the building. Here's the view of the proposed building, looking from, as one goes along Albert Street, along Victoria Street, looking towards the building, and you can see the different materials and the setback in terms of the windows. They also had a look at the skyline study, and I've just picked out 2 or 3 views which I thought would be pertinent, although I'm sure you've looked at these documents online already. So this one shows the view down Green Lane from, you can see the former Arts College on the right hand side, so we're right at the top looking down towards the cathedral, and you can see the wire frame of the proposed building. And you can see in terms of the outline here. So in terms of viewpoint VP19B, which is further towards the cathedral along Green Lane, just where there's a slight curve in the road, you know, a bump in the road, and once again you can see the wire frame outline on the left hand side and the building that's proposed on the right. Just done on there in the background here. A view from looking along the Wardwick, looking towards the proposal. You can see the wire frame outline and the proposed building above the current ridge line and roof line of those buildings. Just looking in a little bit more detail in terms of the proposed elevations and the different materials and the sections through in terms of how the different layers relate to each other. And just reference to your comments, it's been before you twice before, once when it was substantially taller, and that was December last year, and so these are the full comments that you made at that point. And then in January this year, when they'd reduced the size of it to 11 stories, these were your comments at that time in terms of that, you know, there was still causes for concern in terms of the harmful impact on heritage assets. And committee suggested that tall elements should be set back from the street frontage to reduce the impact on listed buildings. The committee was very supportive of the public square idea, but there was concern about the phasing and bringing the public square forward before the rest of the site, and also the concern about the timescales in redeveloping the site. So that's a sort of summary of your assessment last time. Okay, that's it. Sorry, Chris, I think you've got your sound off.
I think somebody might.
Which are you talking to?
Somebody might have done that too for me. Right. Obviously, this is a site that we've given a lot of consideration to in the past, and one which we have felt it necessary to object to the emerging proposals. Clearly, there's been some change in terms of some of the detail, and it's good to see proper consideration of the skyline report, including those those views that Chloe has just shown us. So can I ask for comment on the revised proposals then?
This isn't a comment particularly on the revised proposal, but the whole process. I note that this whole area lies within the archaeological alert area set out in the previous local plan, and yet there's not been any prior field evaluation of the site. And I just think this is very strange.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we'd all agree that with the necessity, given the particular interest of many features in the area, the necessity to have proper investigation of the archaeology at this time. So that's one comment. Can I invite any other comments on the impact of the proposals?
Chair Paul McLaughlin, notwithstanding our previous comments in terms of scale, etc., I do think that efforts are being made with the articulation of the building, particularly on the corner, Green Lane and Victoria Street. I think there are positives to be taken from that. I do worry about the massing of the building still somewhat, but I think that's something can be resolved in the detail there. But generally, I'm not uncomfortable with it now, and the skyline views reinforce that, which are clearly one of the most important aspects of that.
Yes, thank you, Paul. I mean, clearly, in the past, we've tried to suggest that the larger building would be set further into the site, and I think we were really making that point on the basis that of the impact on the listed buildings, the former Royal Hotel, the former Corporation Tramways office, the former post office, and other buildings around the Strand, St James's Street, the Wardwick. I think we were concerned that the building should be set back so that its impact would be reduced on the conservation areas and the listed buildings. And
I still feel that comment is justified as well, Chair. So, notwithstanding our previous comment, yes.
Yeah. So I would suggest that is still the case, that we would have wanted that to be set back. The tall element of the building should be set back from the street frontage to reduce that overbearing impact. The other issue that we raised was one of phasing. We were concerned that only part of the scheme is coming forward in detail, and I don't know whether we feel that's still a concern, that we're just seeing this phase one, and I think in the past people have suggested, well, we may never see other phases,
Chair, that's a very valid point, but that's down to the commitment of the developer and the officers to make sure that it's tied in nicely with any agreement. I'm not sure it's something that we should actually be considering, but my reading of the report was that I thought the square was actually going to be integrated as part of phase one. Maybe I misread it.
Yeah, Chloe, could you just confirm? You showed us the red hatched area, and I'm not sure whether the square is part of this phase or not. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. In terms of the outline, I should just clarify that the approved outline was an outline. It was a hybrid, so it was an outline application, but it had detailed application for the square itself. So that's been approved already. So this application is it's being called phase one, but it's phase one that doesn't include the square because that's already got permission.
Thank you for that clarification there. Yeah, okay.
If I could just make one...
Yes, Mike?
Well, just a comment really, Chair. I agree I was always unhappy with the height of the building and the fact that it's right on the front, but I think we're caught between a rock and a hard place here because it's rising ground. So if you want to set it back, which I would prefer, you're also going to have to lower it by a couple of stories. And I don't think the developer will accept that. So I really don't see where we can go other than, as Paul McLaughlin says, is to look at the detail. I think it looks a bit monolithic to me. I think that will be my comment. But that's it, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, that was a word that came into my mind as well. The bulk and massing is huge, really. It is a large, as you say, monolithic. It's a little bit Soviet style, sort of monolith, really. And I've some concern that it's not got the sensitivity that we had originally envisaged, nor the reference to the buildings in the vicinity. I mean, Paul's absolutely right. They are trying to articulate the elevations and through use of material and through setting back and so on, which is, it all helps. But at the end of the day, I suppose from we're really principally considering the conservation area matters, and so it sounds as though it would be appropriate that we repeat our previous concern that the building will have harm in terms of the conservation areas and listed buildings, and that could be addressed possibly through setting back, although I take your point, Mike, but also through further detailing, more sympathetic detailing, and perhaps it's trying to break up the mass, the singular mass of the building, and then the comment that Chris has made about the importance of the archaeology and the Beckett Well itself in that area should be given a lot more attention than seems to have been the case, in that the applicants haven't given suitable consideration to those matters, in that we had hoped that any scheme could make a real feature of the historical connections and the history of that area. So with that seems to be then, unless anybody's got anything to add.
Chairs, before I do it here, I mean, I am sympathetic with what you said, but I'm also supportive of Paul's position. So I think it seems to be moving in the right direction. And if you feel that you still want to sort of give them a bit more prod to sort of to do that, fair enough. But I think I'm sympathetic with Paul's comments earlier.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Yes, I mean, certainly it is only fair to say there has been some improvement and helpful improvement in terms of height, in terms of the cityscape, skyscape issues, and so on. And I think you're right in phrasing it in the way that you just have, that we would like some further improvement to achieve the type of scheme that Derby deserves for such an important site, and a little bit more time spent now could well be beneficial in the long term to improve the scheme that bit further. So with the comments that have been made, can we conclude that discussion?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I think that was the final item on the agenda. It only remains for me to thank everyone that is in attendance